Pioneer Park. The Daughters of Pioneer, erected in 1955 on Mesa. That's number 169. Early in the spring, 1878, a hardy band of Mormon pioneers arrived on this mesa. With a straight edge and a spirit level, they proved that the feasibility of using the ancient Montezuma Canal to bring life-giving irrigation water from under the Salt River to the desert sands. On February 14th, work began on this project. A survey was made and stakes driven May 16, 1878, to plat the town site accordingly to the City of Zion plan given by Joseph Smith, the founder of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Elijah Pomeroy was the first bishop of Mesa, and A.F. McDonald the first mayor.
I was living in Grandma's old place when we were going to school, and we decided to get married. I don't know, I was up there taking care of Chester and Millard. And
At Grandma's old
going
place?
to school at Grandma's old, that is Grandma's old home.
Where was your mother?
And Mama was living at the Winkleman in the time. So we decided we was going to want to get married about the 1st of January. And he wrote a letter. I got the letter that he wrote to my folks and asked them if we could get married. And we decided to get married on the 1st day of January. And it happened that the river was that time of the year when the rivers was running wild. You know, they couldn't cross it, so they didn't get there to come up to a wedding. So we went over to President Kimball's, and he had married my aunt, of course, Uncle Andrew and Aunt Josephine. They lived there in the old Kimball home, and that's where we were married, in their home. Then we went over to the church house to a big dance that New Year's Day night. Had a good time at the dance, and we went back to the Kimball home and stayed all night.
Why?
Our wedding night. Because we didn't want to go back to Grandma's house on account of everybody was going to chivalry us. We didn't want to be chivalried, so we went back to Kimball's. We knew they wouldn't come around there. And they didn't. They never did know where we went. So we didn't get chivalried the married night.
Then where'd you live?
The next night, we went down to our home in Grandma, and they come the next night.
What, chivalry?
Chivalried us on the next night.
What'd they do?
Oh, they just come and we had a party and just a lot of fun. So we lived there at Grandma's for quite a while. And
in Thatcher.
And then he got out of work, and he and Frank decided to go down to Miami to work. And they went down there and got a job, and they sent for us to come down. And I was down there all the time before Cluffy was born. I made all of his baby clothes down there in Winkleman. We lived on the side of the hill.
Was that Winkleman or Miami?
In Miami.
Miami.
And we had to go up 150 steps from the main street up to our house, mind you. And I made all my baby clothes there. Bought that new Singer machine and made my baby clothes. And just before time he was to be born, I went back to Thatcher so I could be his mama. You know, she was living in Grandma's house then. She'd come back over to...
Is that where Cluff was born?
That's where Cluffy was born.
Was that boarding house?
Huh?
Was that the boarding?
No, that was where Aunt Susie was living.
That's Grandma.
No, that was
Elizabeth
the
Poole?
Wilkerson. Brother Wilkerson was living there then.
Elizabeth Poole? Grandma Elizabeth Poole?
So she was... Mama was living there in that old home, and Grandma was living at Aunt Susie's house. That house I showed you, that brick house of Aunt Susie's there on Main Street. I've got the picture, I believe. And she was crippled up with rheumatism and everything. kind of sick, so she had to live with Aunt Susie, and Mama was staying. In fact, that's the reason she came up to Winkleman, to stay a while with, take care of Grandma, to relieve Aunt Susie, you know. And then she had me come up, and she took care of me. And of course, she was pregnant too, Mama was. And she had a baby a week after Cluffy was born dead, the little girl.
Oh, that's the one. No, Ben's older than Cluff. That's right.
Yeah. I'd had a sister just Cluffy's age, if she'd lived.
Did it live at all?
Born dead. Born dead.
Oh.
So we came back, and
Well, he was born, did you go back to Miami?
Yeah, after he was born, but he didn't make it up there. He was born on Sunday, Halloween, October the 31st, on the Sunday evening at 6 o'clock. And he missed the train Sunday morning and didn't get up there Monday morning. And he stayed a few days, and then he went back to work. So I went back when Fluffy was about a month old before I went back down to Miami, and he met me at the train, and he had a little mustache on him. He'd grow the mustache. And I was looking for him, you know, at the train. The conductor was helping me off the brakeman, and he was standing back looking for him, and I saw him standing. When I got down, I saw that mustache on him. I said, "What on earth you got on your face?" And the conductor laughed, because that little old red mustache he had on him. Kind of red, you know. But anyway, we stayed in Miami then quite a while.
Didn't you make him shave it off, Mother?
Yeah, I sure did. He had to shave it off that night before I'd let him come to bed with me. And
he did, huh?
He sure did. I just hated them darned old mustaches. I wouldn't have a man with a mustache if I never had one. My dad had one all my life, you know, and I never did like it. I never did like Papa to kiss me because he had that mustache. So anyway, I don't know how many months we stayed there, but we went back up to the valley.
Where did you go next?
We stayed there until we went back up to Thatcher. And that's where you was born. We went back in the old home again.
That was in.
And that's where you was born, in my old home. And
who all was born in that home?
Mama was living there, you know, and we. See, how was that? Was she living there, or was? No, we was living there, and Mama come to stay with us.
They were in Winkleman.
They was down in Winkleman. She come up to stay with us, be with me when you was born.
They must have lived in Winkleman a long time.
And that's when Chester and Miller come the next.
Is that where Chester died?
That's when Chester died.
In his old home?
We was living there that winter when Chester and them stayed with us, went to school that winter, and you was born the next August, you know.
Yeah.
And then Chester died the next May. They was going to school that winter after.
In 1918.
And
you want to tell about Chester? Was he real sick? What did he have? Pneumonia?
He had pneumonia. He never was sick a day in his life. He just come back from this meet at Tucson. He went down with the school, and he was their high volleyball jumper and his racer.
Pole vault jumper.
Volleyball jumper, and his mile racer, and his high jumper, whatever.
That's where Rick.
I don't know. He brought back 3 or 4 of the cups that he won for them. And they got back on for Mama or Grandma's funeral, and that is when he told them that day, that funeral, that he'd be the next one they'd carry out. You see. And
just
2 weeks from that day, they did. And that you was just 9 months old then. And after he died, why?
Grandma wasn't there, huh?
Grandma didn't get there, no. She was.
Did he get there before he died?
Chester didn't want me to call him Mama because it's a long ways to come. They had to come by wagon, you see. And I was going to go and take to you and Puppy and go down and stay 2 or 3 weeks down on the range. In Winkleman. When Chester and Miller went home, I was going to go with them. And he says, "No, don't tell him I have Mama come." He says, "I'll soon be all right and we'll go home." We're going home.
Was Millard with you?
Yeah, Millard was going to go with us.
I mean, was he staying with you when Chester was...
but he never made it to sea, so we didn't get to go. And Winnie Moody, that's Glenda's brother, seen how sick Chester was, and he takes it upon himself to call Mama, send a wire to
They
her.
didn't have phones, did they?
And no, didn't have phones. You had to telegraph to her and tell her to come at once. He was getting so bad, and so it's a surprise to me when she came, because I said to him, there's somebody, I says, I wish Mama, we ought to get Mama here. And then they told me then that they'd sent for her. And she was there, got there just 2 hours before he passed away. And he was just, I don't know, he just begged, he didn't, clung to me, held on me for dear life not to let him go. He didn't want to go. He just was figuring on getting married, and he was going to go on a mission too.
Did the doctor come?
The doctor didn't. No, the doctor he wouldn't come anymore because I didn't do what he told me to. I did what he told me to, and Chester wouldn't let it stay on his lungs.
Yeah.
So Aunt Susie told me to put this mustard or this here anti-jesting on him, and he had to have plaster on him one day when he came. That made him mad. He said, "No need of me come if you don't do it." I says, "Well, Dr. Platt," I says, "he won't keep that old Platt thing on, that old heat on him." I says, "It's not doing him any good, and this is a home remedy." "Well, if you don't do what the doctor says, no, you can have him." I said, "All right, I'll do what I can." But he never did come back, and that's what Chester was talking, or Delbert was talking about last night. He took sick with the next fall with it, and the doctor wouldn't come because we, all the relatives blamed Platt for the way he acted. But anyway, he didn't come, and Chester died.
Then
it was the greatest shock to that community that ever was when that word went out that he was gone.
Then where
You can touch it off now again. I couldn't.
Wait a minute. Now stop. Okay.
Soon after Chester died, I couldn't stand the thoughts of living in the old home. He died in my bed and everything. I couldn't even. Well, I wouldn't stay in there at all. And so we moved down to Miami, and while down there, we hadn't been very long there when my two babies got very, very sick, Virginia and Clubby, with that terrible flu that was killing the people off like flies. And they were so sick one Sunday afternoon, I didn't know what on earth to do. The doctors couldn't come. They was all so busy, so my husband and I, we just knelt down and prayed, and that they'd get better. The Lord would send some help to us, or the elders to come and administer to him. And it wasn't long till after we got through praying that there was a knock come at the door, and there, when I opened it, there stood two Mormon missionaries. Said that they'd been directed to come our way, that we wanted help, and they'd been told to direct it to our door. And I broke down and cried, and I told her, I said, I guess the Lord had a hand in it tonight, this end of you here, because we've been praying for you to come. And they had laid their hands on her to minister. You both was just, hadn't eaten anything for 2-3 days. And they laid in a super all day long. And so they laid their hands on your head and administered to both of you. And I had made some broth soup to try to get you to eat that day, and you didn't want nothing. And it wasn't any time after they administered to you, they sit and visit a while, and pretty soon, I think it was you, or was it Cluffy, said, rallied out and says, "I'm hungry, Mama, I want something to eat." And you go for it. I gave you something to eat, and the next day you was around playing, So that was certainly a big, I've always had a lot of faith in prayer. After that, and then we went to Mesa. A grandpa of my father got a job for your dad down there at $1 an hour, and that's the biggest wages we'd ever made. He's only making about $4 a day.
They already moved down there.
They was all living in this big house. We lived in that big house with them there until we bought up and started these. That's how your picture was coming. You always lived in that big house, and that picture's taken.
when I was just 2.
So see, you was only about 2 years old then.
Yeah.
So Papa got this job for him. He always thought so darn much of him, and Papa was a carpenter too, and everything. These days, he worked, you know, he listed to talk about it, through carpenter work and everything. He'd go and watch him work when he was sick and couldn't work himself. And so he got this job, and we went down there, and it wasn't long till here come Frank Glenn.
Yeah. Every place you went.
Every time they'd come, we'd go anywhere they'd come, and when they'd go someplace. So what brought them over to California? What they was bringing Elaine to the Children's Hospital to fix that leg of hers, and they come over and he got a job, and so your daddy's got to run out of work. It got scarce again, and there's work over in California. And Frank called one day, wanted us to come over to California, so he come over in March with come over in. Well, he come over. No, wait a minute. He come over when Frank and Benna come in March. And Kathleen was just a baby, just
Kat
born.
was born in March.
And I didn't come till June.
And
she was 3 months old when I come over to California.
So I'd be, I was 5 when we come over here. Going on 5. I'd have been 5 in August.
We actually
anything you want to say about when we were in Mesa?
And, we left Miami and went to Mesa when Virginia was about 2 years old. And we stayed there about 3 years. We bought us a little home up in Shirley Edition.
That first place.
That first place. And
Kathleen was
we left Mesa. I was president of the primary there. And we went to the dances. We had a lovely crowd we run around with. We had parties and had dancing parties and one thing and another. And we had a big time. So we enjoyed living in Mason. Papa and Mama lived there in that big house, and we lived with Mom and Papa before we bought that big house. And when we bought the big house, that house in Shirley Edition. And then we traded and got that other little one where we lived.
Well, I thought Daddy built that.
No, that was already done.
Well, we were waiting to come
We
over.
traded it. We traded the one in on it.
Oh.
It was,
You mean you did that before we moved back again?
Back where?
From California?
No, we had that before we moved over there.
Okay. You want to tell about the Crosbys, our neighbors in back of us?
Yeah, we had some nice, we loved it there. We had some wonderful neighbors, brother and sister Cosby, and their daughter Ella, there was Ella, and Ruth, and Naoma, and the little boy was, he was Virginia's little boyfriend. He always thought so much of Virginia. The night Dwayne was born, you all went over there and stayed all night.
Yeah, remember that.
And Leona, was it Leona?
Mm-hmm.
She always thought so much of you kids too.
Mm-hmm.
That's the second big one. And Joe and Glyda and their family lived across the street from us, and Opal and Ruthie lived across the street from us. So we had a lot of fun.
Oh, Grandma lived next door there. Well, that's when we come back. When did she live next door there?
I guess that was the last time we come back. No, she was over to California when I come back.
Well, after we moved to California, I was 5. And then your father died.
You're going to break your neck. Lean on over this way.
Okay.
And we went over.
We first come over to California.
When we was over, we'd only been in California a year when my father passed away, and he died on November the 11th, 1923. So we all had to get in the car and go back over to his funeral. And then we just stayed a short time, and then we come back over to Mesa. We
came back.
Over to Huntington Park. Oh dear.
We lived on 60th Street.
Yeah, we lived on 8 years. We lived on it
Well, first, how many years in that little house? 3?
8 years, or no, about 3 years
That
there.
little house, then we moved across the street.
Uh-huh. About 8 years there. And, I mean, that, all in all, it was 8
Yeah.
years.
And Glenna lived in Maywood. We
Mm-hmm.
used to have a lot of fun, a lot of picnics.
Yeah, we lived with Glenna and them
Yeah,
too
when
for
we
about
first
2
come
weeks
over,
when
we
we first
lived
come
with them,
over
I remember.
in Maywood. I didn't make mention of that. Is this Superior already? Oh, down there, I thought they're going to lose it.
Is this Superior?
Yep, this was
This is where Wendell and Ruby used
This
to live.
is where Wendell met Ruby and got married.
Okay, how did you meet Daddy?
Well, one night he's getting ready for a big dance to be held in the Safford or in Thatcher Amusement Hall, and I had a date with Vern Pace, a boyfriend I'd been going with for years, and we got ready. Was getting ready, and in the afternoon I heard that we had a new boy come in on the 5 o'clock train from Utah, a brother to Dora Sims and Grace Naylor. Their brother came.
They lived there, huh?
They both lived there, and I think his Gerilda told me about it. He says he's sure a swell-looking guy. She said, and I says, I bet he'll be to dance tonight. And she says, well, I bet he will too. So anyway, we all, I'll never forget, I had a pretty maroon taffeta dress on that night, and I looked quite pretty that night. And we went to the dance, and danced around. Of course, I was always very, very popular, never had to miss dancing ever. And Vern, he was lucky if he got 2 dances out of 11. We was dancing around there, and off to the way across the hall, I noticed your father standing over there, kind of off to himself.
Bashful.
And, yes, kind of bashful. And we were waltzing around, and I says to Vern, well, who's that young man there? And they says, well, that's Sister Naylor's brother just come in today. And I says, well, my lands, some of your boys ought to be, not letting him feel strange here. And so after we got through the dance, Bill McRae, he come over and asked me to dance in the next room. So I danced with him, and when I come back to my seat, Vern come across the floor, bringing your father over. He says, here, I want to introduce you to this young man. He says, he wants to meet you. And it turned out to be that he told Vern, he says, I'd like to meet your girlfriend. And so he introduced me and asked me for the next dance. So we danced, and boy, I danced 2-3 times. He was a beautiful dancer, your father was. And we danced, and he always told me that he fell in love with me the first time he saw me. And I don't know, I started going out with him, and
Were you engaged?
I was going to go with Vern, he wanted to get married.
Was that Vern's
And so
case?
we went. I went back to Winkleman soon after that, and while I was down to Winkleman, Vern wrote me a letter, said he'd got his call to go on a mission. But he says, let's get married before I go. And I wrote back and told him, no, I wouldn't get married before he went, because I wasn't going to be tied up for 2 years as an old married woman while he was off on a mission. So anyway, he came back, and I said, he said, yes, you wouldn't go on a mission. And I wrote back and I said, yes, you go on your mission. And I says, I'll wait. If I wait for you, you'll know I want you. And if I'm not waiting for you when you come back, you'll know we wasn't meant to each other. So anyway, I had to beg him to go on that mission. He wanted to stay and get married. And I wouldn't do it. So he went on his mission. And of course, while he's on his mission, that gave me a time every time I went to the valley to go have dates with your dad and with Bill. When your father was down in Miami working, he was down there working a lot, and I'd go with Bill McRae all the time. And every so often, your father come up on he bought this beautiful big Thor motorcycle. And he'd come up this road in a couple of hours or so from Miami, you know, over the weekend. Sometimes he'd come up and surprise me, and I'd have a date with Bill McRae, and I'd have to get rid of old Bill McRae some way or other, and Glenn always comes to my rescue. And Bill knew I liked but he was always gracious enough to let me go with him, but he always come back right after he went back down. And he went on that way for, all the time. Vern was in the mission field. And finally, about 3 months before he come home, I just decided I liked your father better, and I even liked Bill McRae better than I did Vern. So I just mailed him a letter and sent his ring back to him and told him that I want to get married. And so by golly, he come home from his mission 2 months sooner than he should have done. And begged, of course, he wanted me to begged me to reconsider and everything, but I didn't do it. I guess I broke his heart. His wife always told me that I did. He took to drinking anyway, and a few years he killed himself drinking. But anyway, I had my choice. I had to take my choice of the three fellows, you know, and I decided who I wanted. I had to tell which one I wanted, and I chose your father. The night before I was married, before your father came up from Miami, the night before we was married, by Bill McRae come down to see me, and wanted to know if I would take him instead of his father. And I said no, and there was another, and I broke his heart over. He married on the rebound, some girl he never did care about.
Well, did Daddy live in Miami all the time?
Yeah, he was working down there all the time until we got married, you see. And that's the reason I went down there after we got married. I went down there, you see.
Right after you got married,
soon after I got married, I went down there, and I didn't come back until just before.
You come back just because he was going to be born.
I just come back to be so Cluffy to be born, you see.
Well, then you moved back to Thatcher though and stayed a little while.
Yeah, we come back to Thatcher. So you was born there, you see. And we stayed there till we went back to Macy's. We went back to Macy's, Miami, and stayed a while with you when you were sick that time. So that was better. So that he's a new boy, and they all wanted to date with him, the older Glenn and all of them. And when I was going out with Vern or with Bill, if I didn't, wasn't when I was out of town or something, you know, down to my Winkleman there, why maybe he'd take them out, but he never could make any headway with them. And Loretta Layton was another that tried their best to get him. So I liked him. He wasn't one of these softy guys that's always trying to kiss you and love you and fool around like so many of them. From George Sims, you see, he was a contractor. And that's what brought him down here. But
what had he been doing? What had he been doing in Utah? Did he go to school?
Just picking tomatoes and
he didn't go to college?
No, never had any schooling at all.
Just working on the farm.
Just working on the farm. And he wanted to be a carpenter.
Who did he live with in Utah?
With
Aunt Mary and your dad?
He lived with them, I think, in Leona. I think they're Dawn or some of them. But he finally wanted to make that trade that I couldn't. He decided to come and live at Dora. He learned to trade from George Sims. And he was an he's a A1 carpenter, cabinet builder. They weren't any better anywhere in the valley. And reserved, you know.
He was kind of shy. How did he get along with your dad?
Oh, Papa, he got along good.
He loved
He liked Papa. In fact, he was the only boy that my dad ever moved up and got to be going with. Papa used to go and sit with the eyes and watch him work when he was not able to work himself.
Well, they used to work together.
You know that picture I showed you where he's sitting on there?
Well, Indian boys.
This little Indian. We're on the Indian reservation now. Bill and I was
Monday,
down at
say.
Glenna's place on Sunday. Now, I didn't expect your father to be coming up to that weekend. And there we was down at her place, and here he come. And I thought, there I was with the date with the Bill. And I said, oh, Glenna, what on earth am I going to do? I told Bill, I says, here comes William, but he, what should I do? And something. Glenna and him got behind the yard and hid. So he couldn't see if it. Then we went off down uptown and left Glenna with Bill. I was always getting in something because I always had some input in. So I got on back of his the motorcycle and went on home and left old Bill with Glenna.
I'm surprised Grandma let you ride that.
Well, sideways. I couldn't ride a straddle. I never rode a straddle. No, I'd been very unladylike if I'd been a straddling. We were going up to Cuff's Ranch one day. We was going up there, and I was sitting on the side by. Quick, and he lost control of the wheel, and he began to go in this way and that way, and over we went. It happened to fell on this side that I was hanging my legs on this side, and then we fell over this way. I scared your father to death, my gosh.
Did knock you
He
out.
went and sold the old thing. He wouldn't have it anymore. But
Well, what'd you ride then? You didn't have a car?
a big wagon, a big
and a horse
hay
and
rack.
wagon.
The rest of the crowd was coming on the hay rack.
Oh.
So we rode back.
Well, how did you travel from Thatcher to Miami and that then? Did you
In
go
the-
on a buggy and
with
a wagon? And,
with the wagon and team.
wherever you went?
Yeah, Papa always had that big team and a big wagon. That's how we moved. That's how we went.
How long did it take to go from Thatcher to Miami? By horse and wagon.
Yep.
How long did it take?
Oh, it
From
took
there.
we took us 3 or 4 days to go from Thatcher down to Winkleman. I'll never forget one night we was
Miami,
going,
too,
and we got caught in a rainstorm up in one of these mountains going. And that night it just poured pitchforks and hoe handles, and we had to cuddle up around in the wagon as best we could, and didn't get any sleep that night. And the next day we pulled all day with this heavy load. I felt so sorry for the horses and the mud, and everything. And that night one of the old horses had a cold.
Oh.
And of course we got out of the rain by then, and the storm, and we had our beds all made down on the ground all around by the wagon. And we was all tired out after the big day and the night before. So we sound asleep, and all at once in the middle of the night, that darn little old colt got up and started running, jumping around all over the bed. Beds woke us all up, scared the daylights out of us. And Papa had to make a room in the wagon the next day.
Were you married then?
No,
So that's when you were...
that's when I was going to Miami or to Winkleman with them.
What, did you go to Thatcher to go to school?
Yeah,
That's
I'd
where
go there
you
in the
went,
winter,
and
no,
you-
in the summer, you see.
Oh.
And I used to have the most fun down here in the summer.
Did you stay with your grandma then? Or
Yeah, well,
Grandma-
Real and I used to live in, Grandma had one room there, she ran it furnished.
Oh.
In the old
You
brand
were
new
real
building.
down there all that
Uh-huh.
time.
And so that's where we stayed. And then I'd come down here in the summertime and stay with the folks.
I'm surprised Grandpa let you stay away from home.
Well, it was Grandma there
Oh,
watching,
you were
you
in
know.
there,
Grandma's house was right there.
Oh,
you see.
yeah.
And then the next year was when, one year, it was after that, when I stayed and got married, and Chester and Miller come and, no, they didn't come and stay with me till the next year after we was married. We went on to my old home, the old home down there. See, Mama gave me that old home after they left. I had that. I wish I'd kept it. I'd had been worth some money
Sell
today.
it?
Huh?
To sell it?
5 acres of it.
Oh,
Anybody ever had as much fun as I had?
there's many friends.
There's many friends, there's many
boyfriends.
boyfriends, and many girlfriends. I was a friend to old people, young people, everybody.
Well,
The old people liked me because I was nice to them.
like Sandra.
I've had many of them say they wish they had a granddaughter like me because I was so nice to my grandmother, you know. Everywhere she went, she wanted me to go with her. Like I got to go to Salt Lake with her because she wanted me to go with her. See? When I was 16.
You on the train.
On the train.
Well,
But I don't know, there's just something about them. I liked to be nice to them. Grandma Barney, she was a sweet old lady. I used to go there and go in and see her, and she'd always pick me a bouquet of flowers. She had a flower garden. I want her old home. I see her old home.
wait, let me put the thing. And you had the
See,
GLG
I
club.
was president of the GLG Club,
What's that mean?
the Good Looking Girl Club.
Good looking girl club.
Uh-huh. We have a dance down at Pima every so often to raise money. And we'd have a food sale, that is, the cakes. We'd say, and rattle them off down there, you know. And half of the girls didn't have boyfriends, so Bill McRae would rent a 3-seated hack at the livery stable. Of course, he drove the most, the best-looking outfit of the whole valley of his own. He had a 1-seated rubber wheel buggy with the top on, you know, and a horse that we could outrun anybody on the highway. Anybody on the highway, they'd come up trotting up, let's have a race. Boy, we could leave them in the dust in no time. But anyway, we'd always go down together in the buggy, and then he'd have a big buggy loaded with the girls that didn't have boyfriends.
Yeah, how many girls
And they'd be
were
about
there?
8 or 9 or 10 in this buggy, this big
Oh.
T-shirt. But he'd see that they got down there, you see. And we'd go down to Pima, to this big dance hall in Pima, and have these dances ever so often. And this particular, one particular night, we went down there, and the Pima boys were kind of jealous of the Thatcher boys anyway, because our Thatcher boys kind of go down there and get the girls, and the Pima boys would come up there to get the Thatcher girls and one thing and the other. But anyway, those darn Pima boys didn't do a thing but went and poured molasses all in the seats of this buggy one night and just ruined all those girls' dresses. Well, if Bill wasn't, I never seen him mad in my life till that night. I believe if he could have caught him, he'd about wrung every one of the neck. And we had to raffle off our cakes that night. And we had another couple with us, Dr. Platt's daughter and her husband. He was a swellest dancer, and I was like dancing. They rode down with us. The doctor had to have the outfit that night. He couldn't use it. So he bought a lot of cakes, 2 of them I think it was. He paid $3 or $4 a piece for them. And we put them in the back of the buggy. You know, in the back there was a little place like this that you lift up a lid and you could put things in it, like the back of the car. You see, just lift up. So Ab Stevens, his name was, he puts these cakes in the back, and we were riding along there, coming out up the main street of Pima, and started up towards home. All at once we heard this back of our car, our buggy slammed down, and we rode on. I said to Bill, what was that noise? It sounded like somebody been in the back of your car. Well, he drove off to one side and stopped and went back there, and both of those cakes were sold. Some of those kids had slipped up there and sold those cakes. And old Ab had bought them. And one of them was Bill's. And, they were mad, those boys. And so Ab Stevens told Dr. Platt, he says, if anybody down at Pima's dying of the bellyache, for heaven's sakes, he says, let them die. He says, they're the ones that stole our cake and eat them all. But we always had a lot of fun. And some nights they did. Those boys have been mean enough. Those Pima boys, they cut the rubber out of the boys' tires and things like the rubber tires. And they never did that to Williams' pretty outfit. But boy, we used to always have them.
Well, how many girls were there in that class?
18 of us.
your cousins mostly weren't
No, well, not in. There was 18.
there? Is that from when you went to school?
Yeah, that's when we were all around the 17 and 18 girls.
And it was your club that would raise this money?
Uh-huh.
You deputies?
Yeah. We were 17 and 18 years old. You see,
Glenna was in it.
There's Glenna and June and Rox, and Yolilda. They're the only three cousins in me. There's four of us cousins. And then there was a lot of the Layton girls in there. They never had boyfriends. I don't know why. But we wanted to go down to dance to Pima, and they never go unless they let us go as chaperones, you know. And everybody wanted the mama to go to be chaperone. And so one time he wanted to go down. He said, "When would your mother let you go?" And I said, "I don't know. Why don't you ask her?" So I really said something to Mama. And Mama says, "Well, why don't you ask your father?" You know, I never would ask Papa. I've always asked Mama. I was kind of really afraid of my father myself because he was rough-spoken, outspoken, you know. So Mama said, "You ask your father." So I told Eve, I said, "You'd have to ask my dad." Yeah, he didn't know whether he wanted to ask him or not. But he did. And Papa told him yes. And you know, that was the commencement of close friendship. Papa called him outlaw. He did to me. They got along fine. And Bill McRae was the same way. But Papa never cared much for a burn, or neither did Miller, or a rap. They upset the dog on him every time.
Is that the one?
Yeah, he set the dog on him one time. He got up in the tree and put my little dog with him. Then went to step up on the porch. Went to go knock on the door. He dropped my little petting price down there, and he says, "Sick him." And he grabbed him with the cuff of his pants and tore them. And Mama gave him a spank. Oh, he's on the little stink that Ralph was. He just didn't like burnt eggs. But he was a nice little fellow. I've always said it, that I don't believe anybody who had any nicer set of brothers than I've had. There's 7 of them, and they've treated me grand. There's never any of them sassed me or been mad at me, or, you know, they've always considered me very highly. And they've always, everyone ever told me that if they ever got married, they'd find something just like me. And then a little cold one time, I raised it to be a big horse. It sure was cute. And I had a calf given me, and I turned out to be one of the best Jersey cows we had. My father was a very stern, outspoken, gruff-spoken man. Everyone was frightened of him because he was that way. And they was always scared to ask him about anything or talk to him. And one time, one instance, I remember that our neighbor, Abby Ray, she lived just a block from where we lived here in Thatcher. And her father was a real old man, and she used to just treat him something awful. Papa used to get after her quite a bit for that. One night, her father told her, says that, "Now don't you take that horse and buggy out tonight, because the horse is lame, and I don't want you taking it out." And so what should happen, after her father got to bed, she sneaked out the bedroom window and went out and hooked this poor old lame horse up in the buggy and headed up for Lover's Lane, up that Safford Lane, up toward the lane up towards Safford, and picked up another girl, and they went up and got a couple of boys in the buggy and rode around. Finally, they parked under the trees there on Safford Lane there, where everybody called it Lover's Lane. So about midnight, Brother Ray come over to the house, knocked the door, and got pop up. Said Abby had gone and took his horse hadn't come home, would he get up and go and get her? So Papa had to get up and dress. He rode a great, big, beautiful horse. He saddled it up and up to Safford. He knew about where he'd find him. That's where all the young folks go, you know. He went up towards Safford. Lo and behold, he saw the horse and buggy sitting there under the shade, and he didn't say a word. He just rode up along the side of him and grabbed the horse by the bridle and started leading off. Before he knew it, these boys had jumped out of the car and run up to the side, up the road, and he said all you could see was their dust. They hightailed it just as hard as they could go up towards Safford.
Yeah.
And so he still had the two girls in the car and
The buggy.
In the buggy.
in the buggy. And finally they took the other girl home, and then Papa, on the way taking Abby home, Papa gave her a good lecture. She shouldn't do that because the father told her not to, and she says your father's getting old, and you should be nicer to him, and especially when the horse wasn't able to go out. And he gave her a good licking over. The next morning after I started to school, Abby, she yelled at me, and she coming up the street going to school. She called me to wait. She wanted to go to school, walk with me to school. And she caught up to me. She got to talking. She said, you know, I like your dad. I said, you do? So do I. She said, yes. And then she told me then, Papa had already told us about it at the breakfast table. And she told me about him coming and catch, bringing her home. And he says, I've always been so darn scared of him. But she says, from now on out, I won't be, because he says he told me what I laid the law down to me. She says I took it pretty good. And she says from now on, I'll know how to take him. So after that, they were always good friends. But when we'd go, they'd have different dances. They always got Papa to be there. He was
The Cluff Ranch.
the city marshal, over there in Thatcher too. And so one particular time we went up to Cluff's Ranch on a hay rack and had the young folks all go up to the dance. And Papa, of course, had rode up on his horse. And he had to be up there to keep our nerve while we were out dancing. And if he'd see a lot of boys outside not dancing, he'd make the wind and start dancing and go home. No, he wouldn't let them sit out. He always had good order around the dance, and we all never had any trouble with any of them. But all the boys liked him, but for some reason he never did like a bird face. He just didn't care for him at all.
Yeah. Say that again.
I say he was a very free-hearted man. He'd give anyone the last shirt he had on his back. He died a poor man because he never could keep anything, always helping his neighbor out.
The widows, when they used to get wood for them.
Yeah. Christmas, there never was a widow in town that didn't have a Christmas tree for Christmas. Papa would go and up in the Mount Graham and cut down the Christmas tree and bring the trees, a wagon load of trees, and go to each widow's home and leave a Christmas tree for the widows. They all had Christmas trees. And he saw that they had plenty of firewood. He'd go up there and load up around the foothills there with the graveyard. He'd go all around there. It was just thickly populated with mesquite bushes. He'd go up there and load his wagon up 3-4 loads a week sometime, and bring home and take them to the different neighbors, and they had their winter's wood. If there's any doubt he needed a little job done, he was a carpenter, jack of all trades. Nothing that man couldn't do. He knew how to do anything. And they had any little job to do or anything. He was always Johnny on the spot deal. Never got a nickel for any other. Never wouldn't take a nickel for any other. And that's the kind of man my father was.
You the apple of his eye.
And I was the apple of his eye, yeah. The sun wasn't setting in me.
Definitely does.
When I was born, Mama said he used to come in and look at me and say what a little beauty I was. Anything wasn't too good, nice enough, or too good for me. And Mama had just come from Provo, and this Albert Jones was asked her to be engaged, and she thought so much of him, but when she come home and Papa was there, had come in, why, I don't know, just before she come back from Provo, or after, and of course he fell for her, and he was such a handsome little fellow, my dad, and of course he was one of these kind that he just worked right fast, and when she started on him, she liked him so well that she wrote a letter to Albert and told him that she found somebody else she liked better, and she took Pop instead.
Who married him?
And married him.
Who married who married him? Because they were married before they went to Temple.
They was married in that rock house.
We don't know who married. Oh, we probably know.
The day before they left to go in the wagon up to St. George to get married in the Temple.
And she was sick all the way with you.
Coming back, yes, or before, I guess you said.
Yeah, before.
Dad, you're going to break your neck off.
Your father was born in Logan. Then he lived in
He was
Heber
his
City
boyhood days was spent in Heber City.
Near that center ward where his mother died.
And he was around, I would say he was around about 18 when he went down to Thatcher.
To see his sister.
And then to see his sister Josephine Cluff. She was going with the name of Cluff. She took her maiden name back when she left her husband. His name was Wallace Jones.
And then
she took his name back, or her name back.
She was the first, and she was a missionary.
Yeah, she went on a mission. President Kimball sent her on a mission. She's gone 2 years in the mission field.
And when did she marry him?
And she came back, and
that's Andrew Kimball.
That's Andrew Kimball.
Yeah.
He was president of our state then. And when she came back, he put her to work as a stake worker, and I don't know what office it was, but he used to take her everywhere he went.
He ended up married
in the steakhouse.
Yeah.
That's before his wife died.
Oh, before his
They went together.
Oh,
and
that's why. So
they went, and as soon after his wife died, and it was a very long time after she died that they got married. And I said to President Kimball one day, I said, why on earth didn't you send me on a mission? I always wanted to go on a mission. Well, he says, you haven't got married. Well, I says, if you'd have sent me on a mission, I wouldn't have got married. Well, he says that I thought the best thing that you should do, and all girls should stay home and get married.
So that's the policy of the church.
And I says, I've always regretted I didn't get to go on a mission. But all of this?
Yeah, he was a jack of all trades.
He's a jack of all trades. There wasn't anything that he couldn't do. He
town marshal.
He had the city marshal had to take care of all disturbances in town. He had to take care of going to all the dances on the county keep order. He rode up and down the valley on his horse. He didn't have any other way of getting around. And
did he keep order?
Kept order. And he had
no shootouts.
No, he didn't have to. I don't even remember him carrying a gun.
No, maybe they didn't.
And he had owned later. He owned his own blacksmith shop. He was in there for quite a few years.
He was a farmer too.
Yes, he took care of that 20 acres Mama had. He always had a nice garden. He raised corn.
Oh, you just had the 20 acres.
Yeah, that's all he had.
Did your brothers all help?
Yeah, they all had their jobs to do. And one thing about it, my father never allowed me ever to go out and chop wood or bring wood in or milk the cow or bring the bucket of water in or anything like that. That was my brothers had to do that. And he seen that they helped me in the house too. You know, Chester was a hand that was more, he and I were very close together, and he'd help me with the dishes. A lot of times Papa would help me with the dishes when the boys were out, just church, had to come back. We're gone someplace, you know. But if they were in the house, one of them had to help me with the dishes. But he never allowed me to do any of their jobs.
Well, you brought up the boys.
Papa just had to look at us. We knew that was the law. That was when. And Mama, we always went to Mama with everything. If we wanted to go anywhere or do anything, we'd ask Mama. But because my father, a lot of times, in the meantime, off and on through the years, he would had to go away for work, to find work. He'd go to Globe sometime and around to different places to find work. And Mama's had the run of the family, and we thought naturally we'd go for her to ask for.
So I guess, did automobiles come in?
They were after that. Later on they come in.
You would have blacksmith.
Yeah.
He'd be out of work there.
Yeah. That was after
he wouldn't be sheriff. He's about 3 years sheriff, 3 or 4 years.
Then he kept up he kept up all the farm implements. He had to take care of all that, plows and shoeing horses and things like that. He was A1 at all that.
Well, what did he do when he went away for work?
Well, he did carpenter work.
What did he do in Winkleman?
Well, down there he owned the farm. He had a big farm down there. But when he was in Calvin, he owned a creamery or milk cows.
Oh.
He didn't own the creamery, dairyman. Yeah, he got up. He and Chester. Not
Where
Chester.
Where did you say that was?
Down in Calvin.
Where's that?
That's down near Winkleman.
Oh.
After he got rid of his farm, he went over to Calvin and got these cattle, and the boys had to get up. Andrew and them had to get up 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning to milk cows and then deliver it.
Oh, the boy. Well, that's why they're all in the milk business.
Mom and Papa moved down to Winkleman on that farm.
Where did he buy the farm?
He and Uncle Dave Cluff, they bought it together. Two different summers. And spent the summer down there, after they moved. Then I come back for winters to school and stayed there in Grandma's Creek, mainly there, you see.
You and Marilda.
We were going to school, and the last winter I spent there, I had the boys there when I was living in Grandma's house, keeping house with the 2 boys, Millard and...
was that after you married?
No, I was married then.
In your old home?
In the old home, and that's the winter I got married. And...
well, after you married, did you live in that old home? Is that where you lived after you married?
For a while.
So you went to
Miami.
Then I went
down to Miami. And stayed until we come back for Cluffy this week.
Yeah, they went to Mesa before you, and then after you moved to Mesa, you were there, what did we say, about 3 or 4 years. And then after you were in California for 1 year, your father died.
Even the
On November the 11th,
1923.
Well, you come back to the funeral.
Lizzie and Uncle Joe and Uncle Bill and Papa.
Built
They went up and built it, and then we
that cabin. Where was that? At Graham Mountain?
I don't know what happened to it. Don't know what, obviously it's a little tiny